Hi, everyone. We'll start today's WiM webinar, and today's topic will be on integrating ethics into AI development towards robust interdisciplinary collaborations by Dr. Elise Li Zheng. I'm Rogu Fang, president of WiM and this is one of the seminars in our webinar series. So before we start into the webinar, I would first like to can everyone see my screen? Should be able to, right? Yes, yes. Okay, I would first like to talk about women in Mackay. So this is a society that committee in Mackay Society started from 2016, and um, we have been like trying to strengthen and widen the representation of female students and scientists in the Mackay community. And in the past years, we have organized a wide range of events within the Mikai event, like a day of the conference and also beyond that. For example, during Mikai 2024 in October last year in Africa, we have organized one launch event including 7 esteemed panelists. And then we also have 2 awards, including the WiM Best Oral Presentation Award and the WiM Best Health Equity Paper Award. And in addition to that, those are the moments of our WiM events and also our awards during the award ceremony at Mikai last year. So this year we'll also have a launch event with very delicate and wonderful presents and talks and panel discussion, as well as Best Paper Awards and Best Oral Presentation Award. And this is our WiM webinar series, which is focusing on the topic of health equity in the AI era. So we have already had a series of webinars in the past year and this year, and today's is our 4th webinar. So we do look forward to it. And in addition, this is our WiM board members for 2025 and 2026. And the blue highlighted members are the newly elected members during 2025. You can see that we actually have a number of positions open for 2025 to 2027 board because every 2 years we will switch the whole board and every 1 year we will add several new members and by like retiring a few members who volunteer to retire. So you can see that for 2025 and 2027, we have the WiM President, Secretary, Annual Event Executives, Public Outreach and Membership Officer, Election Officer, and Community Engagement Officer positions open. You can scan this QR code to apply. The application link is already open today, and Mikai Society will also send out an official announcement very soon. And this is our WiM social media. You can follow us on Slack, which is like the central channel with all the announcements. And we also have LinkedIn, which is Mikai's LinkedIn, and also Twitter. Okay, without further ado, I will let Wina to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you very much, Robo, for opening the webinar. I'm very glad that we can introduce Dr. Elise Li Zheng, who is the speaker of this webinar. Dr. Elise Li Zheng is a postdoc research scientist at the Division of Ethics, Columbia University Irving Medical Center. Her research focuses on the ethical and social implications of digital health data, with a particular emphasis on the integration of consumer wearable data into healthcare practice. Her interdisciplinary work spans AI ethics, big data ethics, and human technology interactions. Elise earned her PhD in Science and Technology Studies from the Georgia Institute of Technology, where she studied in the social technical dimensions of self-tracking. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Elise to give us this presentation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It is an honor to be invited to give this talk and share some of our research over the AI ethics and the ethical integration into research efforts. And it was great to also see all these wonderful activities and all kinds of things that WiM is doing, and I'm glad to be part of it. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about our research project, which took a look at the current landscape and some case studies of how to integrate ethics into large AI development. I am, as Weina just nicely introduced, I'm currently a postdoc researcher at the Division of Ethics, Columbia University. We're a very small we're a very small department in a huge institution, and we're really excited to share our perspective with people in engineering sector, because it is, as we've understood, becoming more and more important at this age. So I will share my screen. Wait a second. Okay. Can everyone see this right now?
Not yet. I think it's going to be shared very soon.
Okay.
It works well.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's get started. So here is an outline of today's talk. So I will talk probably for half an hour and have more time for interactions and questions. So we're going to share the current landscape of AI ethics, some of our research questions, our case studies, our findings, discussions, and some of our future proposed work. So as we've seen, AI has an ethics question, but also, on the other hand, ethics is also having an AI question too. So AI, of course, is facing a lot of great challenges of how to handle biomedical data, how to develop fair and equitable algorithms models, and how to implement them in healthcare. There's lots of things around data bias, data underrepresentation, ethical collection, use, and share of data. And those biases are not just glitch or error, but it's historical accumulation biases and negligence, disparity, and distrust. But also, ethics AI question comes to the ways of implementing ethics. So we have ethics theories, guidelines, and principles. But how can we make it into something that is working, right? So there's serious limitations of the currently we known as principlism ethics. It's a top-down, soft principles, a series of principles such as autonomy, respect, and beneficence. But there's a lack of governance in the current AI era. And the limitations of bioethic research and research ethics, such as IRB, board reviews, they don't really work in this area because mainly data-related work don't require IRB clearance because no human subjects are included. But there are lots of human factors behind the data, and how can we govern it? And also the limitations of so-called responsible AI or self-governance leads to more questions about ethics washing. Some people are saying that they're doing ethics, but nobody is defining or giving clarity around what is ethics question, and it will lead to so-called ethics washing. And there's a gap between theory and practice. Now it comes to how can we make it better? And one of the model we previously used in large research consortia and large research projects is so-called ELSI. This model is how ethics and justice-related research is embedded in biomedical research, starting from the genomic science projects. In this way, ethics teams, ethicists and social scientists become part of the research project and do the research alongside the scientist and to solve problems jointly. It is initially to prevent the misuse of genetic data, for example, to prevent issues such as scientific racism. Later, it comes to address clinical and translational issues such as how to recruit and include diverse populations, how to interpret race and ancestry data, and how to communicate to patients about their genetic risk, etc. And ELSI in the genomic era is announced by James Watson at a press conference in 1988. And later, it received congressional mandate of allocating 5% of funds of the entire NHGRI. It's an institution under NIH in the United States, for people who don't know. And in 1990, they established a joint ELSI working group between NHGRI and DOE. And then this support for complement research and public deliberation in conjunction with STEM research projects had gained a considerable level of success. And later, this term ELSI is also applied in other areas with similar models of embedded research, such as neuron ethics. And quote here is, ELSI is combining scientific research funding with adequate support for complement research and public deliberation on the uses of new knowledge will help our social policies about science evolve in a well-informed way. But the question is, in AI era, is ELSI model enough? So here is a list of so-called ethical, social, and legal issues. But here's our question. What are the new and emerging questions in the big data and AI era? And does the current framework of ELSI fulfill this request? And another very practical issue is the incorporation of ELSI experts. Here's an example of what an expert expressed. They say, bottom line was that about 3 days before that first grant application was due, they called, they means the scientists, they called and asked us whether we would provide some kind of ELSI function for that grant. That is what, it was not specified, there was no budget. So for the science people, ethics or ELSI is an afterthought, a tick box. The experts, ethicists, and social scientists are not on an equal footing. Also, the recent development of the US politics, some of the institutions are rushing out to drop requirements of so-called DEI, then the current administration is going against it. So all these kinds of uncertainties or stigmatization, and scholars have to scramble to find new words for their work, such as community engagement. I heard some people say precision public health to avoid the use of equity and ethics, which makes the entire situations more tricky. So our research is going to ask, how are ethical and justice issues incorporated in currently data-driven biomedical and AI projects? What are content of ethics and justice issues, and who decide in practice? And who is the expert? What is the expertise needed? And how do they get involved in the first place? And what work do they do to advance ethics and justices in terms of, for example, handling data, building models, incorporating workforce or community engagement? And how much do ethicists get involved? And how has the team formation and collaborative structure facilitated or limited teams for addressing issues of ethics and justice? We conducted 2 case studies. So those are 2 US federal-funded national consortia in artificial intelligence across institutions. They all have ELSI components and an ethics team and multiple sub-projects and working groups on various issues, including ethics. We interviewed 17 ethicists, social scientists, team scientists, computer scientists, and community experts. And those are the team members. And mostly we do quantitative analysis of interview transcripts. We code them and interpret what people are saying and what's the connections between the themes. But we also conducted content analysis of the documents, such as funding calls and the abstract, and some of the contents that the teams publish on their websites. here are the findings. We found there's a lot of aspirations around ethics. So there's languages that used in the founding calls sounds really promising, such as ethics-driven, ethical, legal, and social implications in MA/AI tools, ethical and trustworthy AI. They want an integrated plan and to have a culture of ethical inquiries. And those are in founding calls, just a few highlights that under those big multi-million grants, they do have an appetite for ethics. And the appetite doesn't just come from nowhere. They come from the top decision makers. The mandate from funding agencies are from the leadership. And they expressed that the program officers to come up with languages to require those researchers to assemble an ethics-focused projects and teams. So their wishes are pretty genuine. And then this is how they design the project. The project are also designed in a way to put ethics in conjunction with other functional groups. Both projects have a working group-like unit, which assemble ethics-related researchers and led by renowned ethicists and social scientists. The left side is the center is supposed to administer, harmonize findings, and coordinating the sub-project. And on the right side is how sub-projects are designed. They each have their own focused areas. Some are focused on diabetes, for example. Some are on ICU data usage. Some are on voice data training, and so on. They also have each component, including an ethics component, supposed to be working with the rest of the project on resolving ethics issues in AI data collection. However, in reality, there is a significant ambiguity and lack of clarity in goals and deliverables of ethics work. We see the design, we see the requirement, but what count as ethics in handling data AI models in each project, it is so unclear. And how the scopes are decided and how are ethical frameworks implemented, not enough work is done prior to the start of the project. So people sit down together, then they look at each other, what should we do? They don't know. And in the proposal, there's supposed to be so-called groundbreaking and paradigm-setting work, such as new scheme of data collection, requirements for ethically sourced data in the AI era. But later, all the projects, or some of the projects, resumed to status quo. And the status quo is just, for example, writing a consent on paper, just by copy and paste previous down projects. It is probably the easiest way to. Here's some quotes from the ethicist. They don't know. NIH asked us to define this term ethically sourced, like that's a very specific thing that the funding agency asked us to do. And another issue is, despite the promise to put ethics front and center, the projects are still very science-focused and data-focused. Ethics goals and scopes are serving the milestones of data collection or model development. This sidelined ethics goals and created conflicts between ethics team and other components on the project. And there's also bigger concern, the background of right now, AI is having an arms race, and there's a rush for data, and there's immense pressure put on the project PIs to make the milestones data collection, and it also sidelined the ethics goals. Here's some examples of the quotes. The recognition that we're in a new landscape of data collection, the consent is going to necessarily change. But after getting funded, we went back to status quo consent. We went back to a hierarchy rather than transdisciplinary. Having said that, the NIH wanted these groups to come together, but in practice, I think it is still very data-centric. So under those circumstances, the ambiguity in ethics goals and priority of science goals exacerbated the differences and barriers in interdisciplinary collaborations. Mainly, it's the different culture, different expertise, and also navigating through the power dynamics in this AI and data-driven projects. First is the difference in culture. People have different languages. What are you talking about when you mean by fairness? And there's different awareness of human factors and ethics. Not everyone sees the human behind the data. And there's also different training and technical competence, and people don't understand what each other is talking about. Here's some quotes. There's a lot of people who think they know what they're doing, and they're saying that they're doing ethics, but in reality, that they're really doing is just saying, how do I devise algorithm? And that is nowhere near what the challenge are. And also, the same person says, it's absolutely no way different vocabulary and different languages. You're going to have to make sure that everybody can at least give some indications of like where they're coming from and how they think about problems. And a computer scientist, for example, may follow a quantitative definition in their approach, but it is a narrow aspect of how most people think about fairness. In other disciplines, people may think about fairness differently. So he may have, like social scientists, may have a more qualitative. So after this difference in culture, difference in languages, then it comes to the question of expertise. Who speaks for ethics? Put it back into the genomic LC era, genomic also have a long history of incorporating ethics into their research. The ethicists are recognized as real scientists too. They speak certain languages that geneticists understand and pay attention to. It is a completely different story in the AI era. What is counted as ethics work? People are feeling that they're stepping on each other's toes. And there's a lack of bridging or multidisciplinary expertise, and LC expertise is less recognized in data science/computer science field. And people put that, so think that being this part of this learning is how to work with people, but again, socializing the community about what is that LC folks do, and why do we exist, and how do we play either as a consultant or get integrated within the group, and how do we help, and not, get framed as ethics police, quote, quote, ethics police of the project. So ethicists feel that they're misunderstood by a lot of computer scientists, that they're here to police what they should do or not, but actually it's not the issue. And the project's going to be run by data scientists, and the need to get models built. And data scientists don't have the same kind of license. They don't have to show that they know how to handle data respectively. So this is how one ethicist expressed that the computer scientists and data scientists, they don't have the qualification of dealing with ethics issues. But also, as an ethicist about AI, we don't know where the ethical conundrums lie. And now we're supposed to hurry up and say that this consent form or this procedure is okay when we don't know about these. And under both situations, cultural differences and the contentions over the expertise, ethicists feel powerless. Their goal is not recognized. They can't speak out. They feel like they're being seen as a barrier, as a police, and they're in the way of being collecting data. So under the circumstances, they see that ethics is seen as sort of like a widget. It's something, some of the ethicists are even reshuffled into teams that they haven't worked with. Their original works are scratched, and they were relegated to do low-stake works, such as running a seminar. right? So ethics are seen here as something replaceable. Ethics are here, plug and play. You come to this team, here's the problem, please solve it. But they don't have the prior experiences. They're not recognized. They feel that they're a barrier. So they feel powerless about their work. So the RFAs were written to found ethics researchers to be a subject matter expert with authority and a voice to make sure that new data was not getting generated in an ethics blind way. So this word is coming from actually from founding agency program officers. But the reality is that I think the ethics group would tell you that they felt like that was secondary to the primary goal of getting the data set. So going back to the very beginning, without prior work and deliberation, the goals are not clear, the works are not built in. Because of the gap, because of the difference, and the communication is hard, and there is a lack of team synergy. Ethicists and other social scientists are pulled in sometimes at the last minute. They don't have a good understanding of the science and what ethics or justice work need to be done. The team building has no monetary support, and LC experts do not have AI expertise, and they are mostly coming from previously genomic research project. And it needs time to develop trust and recognition, and there's a need to socialize to prevent misunderstanding. And because of lack of clarity and well-defined goals and the changing nature of AI ethics, many of the problems are emerged during research, such as problems on data collection, problems of who to engage and consent. Many of those issues come out from the team discussions. So ethicists have to negotiate time, resource, and space, and other support to do their job. Here's an example. So the conversation happens in the space. It's a much more free-flowing set of conversations across the program. So the problems are not predefined. There are problems everywhere. So then that's part of the challenge for the studies that, quote unquote, and ethicists express that we're constantly respond to emerging needs and we're constantly negotiating our resources. All kinds of things comes down to time. There needs to be time for mutual learning. There needs to be time for team building. And there needs to be time for developing trust so that the ethical terms and work are not getting charged or seen as barriers. And one said, Nedge said that we don't like your ethics work, so we expect you to get rid of the team that you plan for ethics and to integrate this new team that you never heard into your already developed project. So we had to meet dozens of new people on top of all kinds of milestones. And one person also says, personally, I think that they moved too fast. So I think at the onset, they didn't give people enough time to form teams. And then they didn't give the group enough time to establish norms that they could make work. And under such circumstances, leadership is really key to ensure they share the same values, to ensure that the leader respect the ethics expertise and give them voices, and to create so-called team synergy. So one person had some positive experience. So this person attributed this positive experience to that the overall leader really being committed to making sure that your voices are amplified and valued, even though people might not understand what you do. I think it really kept me engaged, and so I find a way to insert sort of my voice when I need to. So here is a graph that to summarize our findings. So again, a recap of this whole thing is that there is a pressure for progress and productivity into the AI's arms race. And under the circumstances, there's an ambiguity, lack of clarity, and conflict in ethics goals. And priority in science goals of data collection sidelined the ethics goals. And when different expertise enter into this field from here and there, ethicists and social scientists this way, and they have met with data scientists, that computer scientists, they've never worked before. It creates a difference in disciplinary culture, languages, and prior trainings. And there's disagreement over the boundaries and qualifications of expertise. And then conflicts over roles and impacts of ethics work, and ethics sometimes is treated as widgets. So this whole situation need for equitable and robust relationship to overcome those barriers. For example, trust and team building, smooth communication, and leadership and value is shared across the team. What can we do? So having seen these barriers, having seen these differences and exacerbated the conflicts and disagreement, there is a need for institutional and organizational commitment to build and cultivate long-lasting and equitable relationships and engage with a diverse body of stakeholders, to recognize the difference and to bring them in, to allow them to develop such kind of relationships. And it is also necessary to build the structure from the ground up and nurture the joint relationships in conducting ethical and just AI research and development, and to share power in co-design and co-production of ethics knowledge and practices. So in contrast with just bringing ethical principles and frameworks, people need to work together. And those working together kind of like design should be considered from the ground up. So to lay the solid foundations, resources needs to be given. So this graph should be read from the bottom up, right? So first we have funding and budgetary considerations. We have resources, the time, the effort for people to come together and learn from each other and to build platforms for interdisciplinary dialogue. And then we have equitable and collaborative relationships, and to include stakeholders, to engage with them, to have a long-lasting, robust relationship so that people can open up on ethical questions and problems and to come together, to sit down, to talk how to solve it. Then on all these foundational efforts, we can have shared values, we can have a really clear ethics goals and implementing strategies. And our goal is to have co-production, co-design. So nobody is there to mandate what is ethics, right? So everything has to come from the ground up to have the clarity, to have what is our goal and what is the ethics goal alongside of the science goal. And also there needs to engage various stakeholders, not just ethicists and social scientists, but also multiple expertise, people from the community, right? So now in biomedical era, we have various stakeholders. They all have different levels of engagement, understandings of AI. There's vendors, clinicians, patients, and communities that are directly impacted by AI decision-making, and whose knowledge and value should be considered, all of them, right? So there has to be a mechanisms to incorporate all these voices. And there's also a need to address complex issues. So there's, again, I'm saying that there shouldn't be a mandate to define what is justice ethics. There's a competing interest. Different people have their different understandings of ethics issues. And to consider the social context and human factors are becoming critical in science too. So those are complex issues. They cannot be encapsulated by a few principles or a few frameworks. It has to be cultivated from the ground up. And our conclusion is that the current ELSI model doesn't really address the challenge of ethical and justice AI. And from a knowledge co-production perspective, it is vital to work across disciplinary boundaries in order to tackle complex and deep-rooted issues of ethics and justice. And we need a good model towards equitable co-production of knowledge. And what should we do and where should we go? We need comprehensive and integrated approach. We need ethics and justice considerations throughout different stages of research and implementation. And we need equitable partnership. So our project, so here is a little advertisement of a project. It's called Lead of STEM, Leadership in the Equitable and Ethical Design. So it is a multi-university consortium. And our goal is to clarify, review, and revitalize those roles and values of engaging scholars in the social sciences, humanities, and arts in the STEM research. And our goal is to transform the power structures that organize research to ensure that concerns for justice and equity are integrated into very conceptualization of research. That is also from the ground up. So this is a very big project, and we're at a very first stage of our research. So we're doing case studies, conducting case studies, and having our lessons learned from ELSI, NIH, and also NSF-funded projects in the US. And we are also branching out to Canada to have this ELSI Canada to investigate how people are doing to use empirical method to investigate the problems on the ground and in the field. Our next phrase would be to identify practices, to review other models, guidelines, and frameworks, and to identify best practices through the workshops with various stakeholders. And ultimately, we will have this process of design, redesign, implementation, and also this kind of like cycle to really effectively incorporating ethics and ELSI considerations into scientific projects across disciplines and fields. I hope you have learned something about this talk, and thank you so much. I don't have a website yet, but I do put up some of my recent work on Linktree. And this research is part of, I just mentioned, Lead STEM project and supported by NSF and NIH. And here's our website. If you're interested, you're very welcome to take a look. And I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Elise, for your wonderful talk. It's a very different topic, actually, when we always view those very technical, like computing talks in AI, because we are so much focused on the numbers, on the algorithm, on the architecture and innovation. But ethics is so important parts that people always think we can just bring different metrics to evaluate it. But it's not actually. There are so many different dimensions of legal and social like conventions that we actually did not consider before. So I think your talk really brings a very new dimension to the WiM and also to the whole ethical AI research. Well, now the floor is open for everyone. If you have question, you can either type your question in the chat box, or I'm not sure if you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. I think the easiest way is to type your question in the chat box. Well, if no question yet, I actually have a question for Elise. So there is a keynote talk at ICCV last year and also talk about ethics in AI. And I think the speaker mentioned that most of the today's ethics research or metrics are not in compliance with the EU laws. So what is your view on that? How can we make design metrics, or should we actually design ethics or fairness or bias metrics to follow the law? Or should we actually design those metrics at all? How should we actually address those problems?
I think first of all, I'm not a legal expert and I don't research into the EU laws and regulations, but I think the EU are really ahead of making the governance models and regulations, and they really come together to come up with the landscape and this roadmap of pointing out where we're heading, right? So this is definitely an advancement, and compared to that, the US current administration is, to say the best, indifference to the ethics questions, and really again very stand against the idea of equity and justice, right? So I think right now the challenges we're facing is that really we have different definitions and different context of ethics development, right? So if you wanted to debias an algorithm, you can make regulations to say that in certain field, for example, in healthcare, how do you audit? How do you make sure that your database is fair, right? Your algorithm is fair, and what are the techniques to make sure that certain algorithms are designed in a way that complying to the non-discriminatory law, right? So those are technical questions, but also there's deeply rooted question about there isn't enough data for people who are marginalized, right? If you want to study a marginalized population, for example, homeless population, if you want to study Native Americans that they don't want to provide data because of historical negligence and marginalization or even harm for researchers to collect their data. And if you don't have those data, you're going to face with injustices in the system. So it's a much deeper rooted problem, so to say, that consider especially health and healthcare. It is a matter of trust. It is a matter of what kind of relationship you have with all kinds of communities, and what is your model is bringing such impact to the communities, right? So if you want to measure those impact, what kind of metrics are you trying to make, right? Where is your ultimate goal? So if is health equity a goal, then you have to design your metrics around health outcomes and how the AI model is implemented in a way that not marginalizing certain groups, right? So it's connected to the broader questions with the healthcare system, and it's not just the AI. AI is just decision-making tool, or you can say that the mass collection of data should be conducted in a way that is compliant to the law, but you're not solving the equity question. So there's much more beyond the compliance with the law, no matter it's EU or non-existent here in the US. We don't have laws or regulations. I hear that there are efforts on the state level, state legislation level, that certain, because the federal government, so that each state might put in their own laws to AI and in critical areas such as law enforcement and healthcare and education. But it's all comes down to what kind of questions you want to address. So yeah, I hope this is helpful, and this might not answer your question.
Yeah, I think it answers from like maybe a higher level. And I think there's much research to be done in trying to get more data from the marginalized population to actually answer it. Well, we have two questions. Wina, do you want to go ahead to like speak the question?
Oh, yeah. So we have a question from Risa that do you think ethics research will be impacted with current USA politics?
It will be hugely impacted, to be honest. So there's a lot of so one aspect is that many of the funding calls developed along the time that already have certain languages such as LC, ethical, legal, social implications, and they increasingly including languages such as health ethics, health equity or injustices, and those are becoming like if they put out a funding call that they require you to have a team to address those issues so that it do not reproduce the systematic or systemic injustice in the healthcare system, right? And there's also an institution, it's called Minority Health. But this current administration is really, really hostile to those languages, right? I don't know. We are all thinking that who are they targeting, right? What are the goals and deliverables do they want? And we all know we just don't know, right? So it's unpredictable. So the current Trump administration, the actions are pretty dramatic, and the consequences sometimes are dire. So the takeaway with the current situation is that we're still going to do whatever we do, but maybe we come up with new languages and approaches that goes around this issues. We're not gonna to stop our work, right? But we just have to come up with certain languages that do not become politically charged, which is sad to think about. If you don't talk about equity, how do you talk about health disparity, right? And it's objectively exists. It's not going away if you just don't talk about it, and it will have serious consequences on the healthcare system if you don't address inequity or disparity. It's gonna cost a lot, right? Such as preventive care. If you take out the community support from a lot of people, then you're gonna spend more when they're really sick. So it will cost people money. It will cost the government money. So it's not a question that, oh, we cover our eyes, then we don't care about it. And yes, our work is going to be hugely impacted, and all these funding issues and delays and all kinds of things. Yeah, but we're just gonna find a way to address it in a different manner.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope it answers this audience question. Maybe we can move to the next one from the audience, Constantina. What advice would you give to a research psychologist in the AI tech industry to convince their multidisciplinary team of the need for an ethics specialist in the team?
So here are short question is that it's hard. I know that it's hard. And so long question is that there's different ways to think about why are you bringing on ethics specialist, right? So for different people, they have different really practical considerations. One is the compliance to the law, right? So the LC is called ethical, legal, and social implications without it's not without a reason. So law compliance or legal compliance is a thing, and it is the most immediate consideration of lots of tech development sectors in and out of academia. For tech industry, they're increasingly use the term of responsible AI. So it's a new term that I think coined by Google at the first. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's self-governance is a mechanism of self-governance, and to avoid unintended consequences. For example, if you put out a chatbot, then the chatbot become super racist, and this is a PR crisis for the tech company, and also it's a damage of their image and also their prior work. So people are going to remember all the chatbots as racist and forget everything about the good side of the technology. So that is also a very practical consideration. But I would say addressing ethical issues is bringing long-term benefits, right? So what kind of the tech industry for research psychology, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming, maybe like mental health apps is going to become a big part of the digital health field. I know that other development are also marginally related to probably product development and other sectors of the tech industry. An ethical consideration would bring your product further or bring a long-term, much more long-term lasting relationship with you and the human and with you and the customer, and also to really address the deep lying issues of people, why people are feeling sad, or why people are feeling out of control of their life. And those are social implications and ethical implications that you need to take a step further to think around the product. And to see where your product and where your customers, patients are situated in this situation, and to make really responsible decisions around tech for good, right? So I think to bring an ethicist onto the team would bring a really valuable perspective from the human and from for example, from how who are your customers, or who are the problems that you're going to solve, and what are the underlying issues, and to lay out the framework, to lay out the principles, frameworks, and approaches that one is needed. And it will broaden the horizon of the thinking, and to think about larger, long-lasting, and underlying issues that a products try to solve. So that's my take. I don't know. I am not working in the industry, and we're actually, to be completely frank, we're really critical of the current industry's practices. But coming from a user's perspective, or a little bit of the philosophy of technology perspective, it is beneficial, and it is doing good. It should be a mission of any technological or development or a tech maker to advance the good, and what is good, to think about those issues really deep and broad.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much for your answer. I think the long-term thinking and rethinking the vision and the goal is critical, maybe for industry and research.
Really,
Okay, any other questions from the audience?
Well, if there's no other questions, I want to just emphasize that our WiM board is open for applications for the 2025 and 2027 board. And if you come a bit late, you did miss this part, now you can also be aware of this. And we also have the QR code and the link available in an official announcement very soon. And you can also follow our Slack and Twitter or X, or you can scan this for all the social media information from WiM. We will have like monthly webinars on AI, more equitable AI in healthcare and medicine, and we'll also expand this topic to more broader spectrum too. Thank you so much for your attention for today's webinar, and thanks again for Elise for your excellent talk on the ethics of AI research. I really appreciate everyone's attendance, and we'll keep you posted our future events and webinars. See you next time. Thank you.
See you.